And hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to a special broadcast from Xanadu Gallery, an interview with Elena Parashko. She's an artist and author of the Survival Guide for Artists. And by way of introduction, before I bring Elena into the conversation, I'd just like to give a little bit of background about how we came to meet one another and work together on this book. Any of you that follow the Red Dot blog or have read any of my books know that I work to provide information on the business side of art. I want to help artists better understand some of the mechanics and nuts and bolts of how the art business and in particular the gallery business work. But in the course of that, I'm constantly having conversations with artists who have questions that I would say fall outside of my area of expertise. Questions like, how do I overcome a lack of inspiration? Or how can I cultivate my creativity? How can I overcome rejection? And what can I do to meet the stresses of an artistic life? All great questions, but questions that I, as a gallery owner, don't necessarily have the insight or inspiration to be able to give you direction. And so realizing that, I several months ago had the opportunity, I guess it's been a little longer than several months ago, Elena reached out to me with some conversation and questions about my book and publishing a manuscript that she had written. And I realized on speaking with Elena and reading over her manuscript that what she had written was kind of perfectly speaking to a lot of those questions and concerns that an artist has, and how to kind of approach the creative life. And Elena has a very interesting background. She's an artist, a teacher, and a writer based in Sydney, Australia. So down under and quite some distance from us, but the experiences that she has are really, you're going to see, universal. She has a bachelor's degree in education, a master's degree in adult education, and nearly 30 years of teaching experience. In the last 10 years, Elena was able to transform her life from working as a college literacy and communications teacher to being a full-time professional artist who annually has teaching experiences and opportunities in Fiji, Hamilton Island, Norfolk Island, Italy, Bora Bora, all wonderful places. And she's contributing writer for Professional Artist magazine. Many of you will have read Elena's articles there, and then also Leisure Painter in the United Kingdom and some other magazines as well. And so her artwork has been published in numerous art and home decor magazines in Australia. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you, Jason. A very all-encompassing introduction.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm glad to be able to have this conversation about you and your book, and sharing some insights into the questions that many artists have as they're trying to build their creative life. And I should mention that as we get started here, because we are at such great distances, it's wonderful to be able to have a conversation and an interview like this. But you may notice, those of you who are listening, a slight delay. That is the delay that is incumbent with an internet connection and crossing the ocean. So just bear with us if there's a slight delay between questions and responses. Kind of going to the basics, Elena, what was it that drove you and led you to write the Survival Guide for Artists?
Well, it really was inspired through my experience writing articles for Professional Artist magazine. I've been writing sort of like inspirational articles for about the last 5 years, all about those issues that you mentioned that artists often ask you about. And they're things that I had to deal with personally and find ways to overcome so that I could proceed with my art career. So I really had a strong sort of belief in and desire to help other artists who are going through those same struggles that I did. So I've been writing articles for Professional Artists about those issues, like overcoming fear of the blank canvas and dealing with isolation and working in the studio on your own, how to stay inspired, all those things, how to build a reputation, the sensitivity of being an artist, you know, you have to have some sensitivity, but too much can also be an issue. So really all those emotional, psychological things that we have to face on a daily basis and find ways around if we're going to proceed with an art career. And with my articles, and actually with all my work, I come from a very positive perspective. So I do admit, yes, we do have those issues, but always looking for positive, proactive ways to overcome them, to deal with them and move on, you know, in a constructive way. So as I've been writing those articles for Professional Artist, I noticed that after every issue went out, I'd get feedback from readers just emailing me saying, oh, I really resonated with that article and that's exactly what my issue was. And I didn't think a bit about looking at it in that way, because when you're sort of entrenched in an issue, sometimes it's very hard to see the window out of it. So that was very inspiring for me to sort of know that my writing was reaching out and helping others. So that really gave me the idea of going further with that concept and putting together all those ideas into a book. And that's where I came up with the manuscript for the Survival Guide for Artists, because as a book, I had the opportunity to take it further and deeper. So as well as addressing all those issues, I could also have the space to also get people to think about how they could start right here, right now, from wherever they are, to take some action to move forward. So I structured the book into 20 chapters. The first half of the book is really dealing with the issues common to the mind, body and soul of the artist. And then the second half of the book is, well, what happens when you then go outside of the studio and you start interacting with other people, like clients, gallerists, everyone that you need to sort of deal with to make a living in the art world. So it's really taking people right from the beginning, right through the process, from wherever they are to wherever they want to go. And at the end of each chapter, I have what we call a satisfaction plan, where you actually take the issues addressed in that chapter and the solutions and the strategies that I suggest, and readers can think about how can they actually implement this in their life now. Because that's very often the problem. You know, we think, oh, one day we'll do that, or when I've got time, I'll address that. So I start with very simple things, just strategies that people can start thinking about their issue or their circumstance, and then simple steps that they can take right now to actually start them on that journey to where they want to be.
And in addition to the kind of the satisfaction plan, there are a lot of other innovations in terms of how you structured the book. And one of the first things that we discussed and that you mentioned to me was that you really wanted to create the book as a kind of literally as a guidebook for artists. And in fact, you wanted to format it so that it had kind of the look and feel of a travel guide, if you will, with some interesting imagery and maps. So talk a little bit about what inspired you to pursue that design and what you would hope that design how it might help artists.
Well, it's very visual because artists are visual. So rather than just relying on the written word, there's the imagery in the book to help artists connect. So, and I really did see that our journey from wherever we are to be able to live the life of our dreams really is just that. It's a journey through a lot of processes, to dead ends, roundabouts, coming back. A lot of things happen on the way to the destination, which are crucial, really, to our own development, because it's that journey where we develop skills and establish connections and build a reputation. So to me, it really was the perfect metaphor for the journey through life and to actually become the artist that we want to become. And it's quite interesting that the way we create our artwork is really the way we create our lives. You know, it's the same process leading to a product. So we are actually creating our life as well as the artwork. So I'll just show you a couple of images from the book. I had the idea of almost like a treasure map to be a visual summary of the table of contents. And so sort of designed, you can see that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's pretty much all the chapters in the book presented visually, almost like a little treasure map. So you're going from just surviving through all those issues and finding ways around them until you actually are thriving as an artist. The cover as well is actually zooming in on a really close-up of one of my seascapes, and that's sort of a connotation of almost like the sea voyage. Just really being able to see the canvas and the brushstrokes of the ocean.
And I think as, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, and with the satisfaction plan, I actually have like the passport stamps, because that's sort of representative of, yes, you've actually are on your way somewhere. You know, when you actually fill in some of these things and think about the issues, you have made that first step to being on your way.
And as you look at the map and kind of think about, you know, the path that every artist takes and some of the roadblocks in there, let's talk about that for a minute. And what do you feel are some of the greatest challenges and difficulties or roadblocks maybe that an artist might face in their career that you have faced or have seen other artists face?
Well, for myself, and I think probably almost every other artist, the biggest challenge, I think, especially in the beginning, is establishing confidence in yourself and in your artwork. So without that confidence, you actually undervalue your work, and then you have all the issues of not knowing what to charge for it and not seeing the value that it actually has for others. Another issue with not having confidence is that you are then open to the comments of other people, the naysayers, and you can actually let them squash your dreams if you listen to them. So if you don't have that confidence in yourself and your resolve, you're really easily swayed off your path. Also, if you don't have confidence, you hold yourself back from taking opportunities because you don't feel that you're good enough or worthy enough, and it holds you back from really living the life that you want. You also have a heightened fear of rejection because you seem to feel that any no is actually a rejection of you as a person and you as or your artwork. Whereas in many situations, a rejection may just be a reflection of any number of other variables. So for example, if a gallery rejects you, it could just be that you're not a match to the aesthetics of their work, or they're not taking on artists at the moment. So yeah, if you have confidence, you can rebound from that and refine your strategy and maybe approach a different gallery that's a better match for you. And basically, if you're not confident, you don't enjoy yourself very much and you're not thriving and you don't really reach your full potential. So I think that really is one of the core issues at the beginning of most artists' career, and I know for myself as well. Once you can develop some confidence in yourself, everything else follows better from that. And one of my big sort of philosophies really is be, do, and have. In other words, first you must be the kind of person who can do what is required to then have what you want. And there are those core elements of the being, the person that you must be, and confidence is one of those.
And I think the book is kind of replete with a lot of great, just kind of very practical and pragmatic steps that an artist can take as they're facing any of those kind of challenges and the many other challenges that an artist faces. Early in the book, you talk about some of the challenges that artists feel just even getting started creating. A lot of artists may come into it with just an abundance of ideas and energy and be able to go right to work, while others know that they have a desire to create and feel the drive to create, but struggle with finding their artistic voice or channeling that drive into creativity. And you talk about that in one of the very first chapters, and just kind of briefly, what would you share with an artist who is kind of struggling to find, the direction that they want to go in terms of their creativity?
Well, I think with artists, our creativity comes naturally if you're not blocking it. And how we most often block it is through distractions. And those distractions could be physical ones, like we're in the studio and the phone's ringing or people are coming in and interrupting. Or they could be emotional, psychological distractions, like if you're worried about an issue or a problem, you can't get your mind off those kind of concerns. Or even if you're worried about the artwork and you have that fear of the blank canvas or the fear of rejection of it. So if you're kind of not doing those things to block the creativity and you can just relax, it will come naturally. But there are things to sort of help you get into the zone, things that you can do. Because really, if you can place yourself in that state of being that we call the zone, that's where inspiration flows naturally. It's not something that can be forced. You can't stand at the easel and demand it come. But there are strategies that you can put into place to ease yourself into it and tap into it longer. And the first thing really is prepare the time and the space for the inspiration and the creativity. So wherever space you're working in, make sure that you actually have all your materials on hand, so that when you are in the middle of the zone and you're creating, you don't have to stop and interrupt that inspiration to go and find something or realise that you've run out of materials. So it's sort of that, in that practical setting up and preparing yourself physically for the process. But it also means preparing yourself mentally as well, because you need some clear space in your mind to allow those ideas to flow and not to be fighting their way to your attention through all your other daily concerns. So you really need to just clear a time and a space in your head and your physical environment to allow it to come. So the first step in doing that is really just relaxing your body and relaxing your mind, and just putting everything else on hold for the time being. Even if you can't sort of resolve issues now, just put them on hold. They'll come back to you later when you're finished. They'll be waiting for you, I'm sure. And then just start, okay? You don't necessarily have to have the end product in mind, and this sort of equates to your life in the journey of creating your dream life as well as actually in creating the artwork. When you start, you don't have to know exactly where you're going and how you're going to do it and all the processes along the way, because that can be quite overwhelming, especially if you don't have the answers. So you don't have to know everything right up front to start. So with the artwork too, pick up a brush and start. And very often you'll find very quickly into it, the zone will just kind of suck you in and inspiration comes. Also, once you're in the zone and creating and inspiration is flowing, it's important not to be judgmental about what you're doing and what you're creating, because that premature judgment will actually stifle your creativity, because nothing will shut it down quicker than actually condemning it. So you really need to put all that judgment on hold and just go with it. Learning to play is also very helpful, because it frees you up to experiment and to take risks and try new things and just relax into the flow of creating. And that's really where happy accidents occur, in interesting innovations, where you're in that safe place and about not worrying about making a mistake and just going with it. And that's sort of another really important part about inspiration, is go with the flow. Because very often when you are inspired, even if you have gone into it with a preconceived idea of what you're trying to achieve, often inspiration will take you in unpredictable directions. So I really recommend just going with the flow and not fighting it and trying to wrestle it back to what you originally planned, because really that's where true creativity and innovation come from. Just that spontaneous going with the inspiration. Then it's also important to record your ideas, because once you get the feeling of what it's like to be in the flow, it can actually come to you any time of the day or night. Just short little snippets of inspiration might come to you, ideas about projects, how to complete something, how to start something. just innovative ideas come when you sort of least expect it, because you're sort of relaxed and not sort of struggling with it. Very often in the middle of the night, you know, you wake up, well, I very often wake up in the middle of the night with a great idea or the next line in an article I'm writing or something like that. So I also always have pen and paper by my bed and all over the house. So whenever I do have those moments of inspiration, when I don't necessarily have the time to, okay, go in the studio now, but I record those ideas before I forget them and they're gone. So all those things sort of help get into that flow of inspiration and maintain it for as long as possible.
Well, and I think that that idea and getting into the flow and all that kind of points to maybe a little bit of a romanticized vision that we have of the artist in the studio working away and you know just feeling like they're tapping into that and it's very powerful and wonderful, and that's, I think, what every artist is seeking. The flip side to it, though, is that many artists discover that working in the studio is a very lonely undertaking in some ways, that you can have a little bit of a sense of isolation, and even more broadly that you know, whether you're living in a rural area or in a you know, a metropolitan area, you're different as an artist. You have different interests and different drives. And so one of the things that you address in the book is kind of facing this sense of isolation and overcoming it. So talk about that a little bit. What advice would you give to an artist who's maybe feeling like they're not connected, or that they have, you know, feeling that sense of isolation?
It's common to every artist, I think, at some point in time. We all do have different needs for company. So everyone reacts differently to the amount of isolation that they have. We all actually need to have some isolation when we create, because we need that solitude and blocking out of distractions from other people and other things to be able to really focus on our work. So a bit of isolation is a good thing, but depending on your personality type and how much company you need, it can lead to sort of negative repercussions, really, because your needs not being met. And the needs that sometimes are not being met by working alone in the studio for extended periods of time is just that need for personal company, seeing another human being, that need for conversation, for sharing experiences, asking someone for a second opinion, you know, what do you think of this? The exchange of new ideas and new perspectives, because if you are just working alone for, you know, years at a time, you can become sort of stale in what you put into the work, because you don't have that broader perspective and fresh ideas coming into you. And sometimes even just you're lacking or needing to change your environment, because if you're working in a home studio, you might feel like you're never actually leaving your house, because you're working in your studio at home and then you switch to your life as, you know, a mother or father or a caregiver or child or parent, and you're still in your house. And so your work and your home life's in that one environment. So it is important to actually change environments sometimes. And even the simple thing of maybe picking up your art materials and going outside and painting, you know, on location or out in your backyard, that could be enough just to feel that need of changing your environment. So people who, say, work in an office, they would have all those needs met every day. But when you're working in your studio, that is an issue. So there are strategies that you can put into place to help alleviate that need. And again, it's finding that balance between having enough time alone to create, but then balancing it with other input when you need to. And the first sort of simplest thing that I always do is have music playing in my studio, because sometimes it's just the silence of the environment that can really play on your mind. I find that just having CDs playing in the background actually enhances my creativity, because I can really tap into the energy and the creativity in music, and it helps me get in the zone and in the flow, which I think is probably less danger of distraction than, say, listening to the radio, where you've got commercials and DJ chit chat that can actually distract you and pull you out of your focus. Another strategy you can use is actually sharing your workspace with other artists. Again, you'd have to be mindful that everyone has the same objective, that it's just sharing the workspace and still actually working, and sort of not turning it into a socialising thing more than a work thing. You could get involved in collaborative projects with other artists, so you're not just working on things on your own all the time. And joining or even setting up an artist networking group is quite useful too, where you can get together with other artists, discuss issues, new ideas, concerns, and just sort of feel like someone else understands what you're going through. My only kind of hesitation with that is to make sure that the people in the group are really focused on upliftment and encouragement, rather than the danger of it turning into like a complaining session. If you can't actually get to physically get to an artist networking group, you can always tap into the virtual networking groups that are online. There's a sort of plethora of them available at the moment. Then also getting yourself out to opening nights is a wonderful opportunity to see what other people are doing, connecting with other artists, getting input of fresh ideas. And you will find that you can meet similar people in the industry from one opening night to another, and that's a great way to establish professional associations and even personal friendships. You can also take yourself on art excursions, visit galleries, museums, just to get a bit of fresh input, and join art classes, or actually any kind of class at all that might help with your professional development, like photography course, a class on using different mediums, computer skills, even business skills. Also, if you regularly contact your clients, that could be an interesting way to expand your horizons and not feel so isolated. And I mean kind of connecting with them in a two-way form of communication, not just one way with a newsletter because they don't respond. But if you just send an email or a quick telephone call, it actually has a dual purpose of reconnecting you with them on a professional level, but also there's a great opportunity for you to actually establish friendships with people who appreciate your work and what you do. And of course, don't forget your non-artist friends. So sometimes just getting away from that whole, the art world can be refreshing as well. And it's sort of interesting, I do have an interesting postscript to that whole issue of isolation, because I did feel those things myself, and that's what prompted me to write that chapter, because everything that I write about I've actually experienced myself, and these are the strategies I use to get around them. But I now actually have a greater appreciation for that isolation. After I had an experience about a year ago, I was so excited to be accepted to work in an atelier des artistes in Tahiti with a group of international artists, and I thought, oh, fantastic, here is my opportunity to work in a shared space and have all those things, the input, international input. And I'll just put it down to being a very interesting experience that ranged from, say, unwelcome romantic advances from one artist through to undisguised sabotage from another. So I actually came home appreciating my solitude more than I ever did before. So I think it's all about that balance, really.
Yeah, and that in one of the chapters in the book, you talk about the importance of enlisting supporters and drawing support from them and managing those saboteurs. And why would you feel that this is important? What advice would you give to someone who's maybe just trying to start to create a network, or who's facing some of those same kind of saboteurs that you mentioned?
Well, especially when you're starting out and you're a little bit unstable in your resolve and in your confidence, and you're a little bit vulnerable, then certainly the words and actions and reactions of other people can have a great impact upon you. And you will very quickly find out who are your supporters and who are your saboteurs. And you need to kind of adjust your behaviour with them accordingly if you're going to stay focused and not be talked out of your dream. So wonderful if there are supporters in your life. You know, they're the ones who will encourage you, give you guidance and actual real help when you need it. You could actually be proactive and approach someone to be your mentor if you would like specific help in a particular area, maybe a business mentor. Excuse me. But even if you don't have a supporter in your life, it's not essential. You can carry on without that. And that's sort of quite an interesting revelation, is that sometimes the people who assume would be your supporters are not, or they're actually saboteurs in disguise. So there is that beginning stage when you're kind of sorting out who's who, that can come as quite a shock. The supporters in your life, of course, they're the ones who will try to undermine your dreams and your hopes and your goals. And so that's where maintaining your self-confidence is the way to manage that. And the easiest way is just to avoid them where possible. If avoidance is not possible because they happen to be a close family member or something like that, then it's probably easiest just not to share your dreams with them at all. And if they do give you negative feedback and destructive comments, to really try to distance yourself from it and not take it personally, and just think, put it down to their own, you know, emotional baggage, that they have their own perhaps regrets or jealousies, and unfortunately you're just the brunt of that. So, but it's just something to be mindful of, that you have control as to the feedback that you absorb. And if you recognise someone as a saboteur, you know, you don't have to accept their negative contribution.
Well, and if you look at your experience as an artist, and as you kind of think about you know, what it takes to make it as an artist, what would you point to as 2 or 3 of the most important factors? I mean, I'm sure you've already mentioned confidence, and I'm sure that's got to be one of the big ones. But what other factors would you point to that will ultimately propel an artist to a successful career as an artist, but also a successful life as an artist?
Well, I think related to the confidence is definitely believing in yourself and your work. That'll take you a long way. Secondly, just to continually be open to learning and developing and growing and evolution, because you will evolve as a person and your work will as well. And the third thing really is just to be very passionate about your work. I mean, that's probably why you got into it in the first place, because you have this passion. Don't lose sight of that. It can be easy to get distracted with all the other peripheral stuff and forget that original passion. So if you can just maintain that and really be eager about what you do and why you do it and how you do it, it just makes for a really wonderful, exciting life. And other people pick up on it as well, and you have great responses to your work and what you do. And that's really the difference between just surviving and thriving. And that's when, if you're passionate about what you do, that's when your journey really becomes an adventure.
Well, and as you look at kind of where you are currently, and just kind of building off of that, you know, that adventure and building that successful life, talk a little bit about what your life as an artist is like, and some of the adventures that you're able to have because you've pursued that passion.
I feel really blessed to have the life that I have now, or that I have created now, because it was a very proactive choice once I made the choice. So basically my life now is divided between being at home and in Sydney, and being a wife and mother, and teaching weekly classes when I'm here, writing articles when I'm home, and painting, of course. And then about 3 to 4 months of the year, I'm actually away traveling. So in the capacity of being an artist in residence in lots of wonderful places, as you mentioned, mostly tropical sort of resort locations, because that really is my niche market with my passion for seascapes and being a marine artist. So I'm fortunate to be able to take people on, say, painting holidays for like a week in Fiji or Italy, where we actually paint on location. And also like a month-long residencies, where I'm about to go next week, where I have an exhibition of seascapes and at the same time teach children and adults in that resort, teach sort of art classes. So it really is a balance, not in the common sense that, oh, I have to balance every day with an equal amount of work and an equal amount of family home life, because it's not like that at all. I have periods of time when I'm at home and it's mostly being, you know, the wife and mother and the business aspect of it. And then there's other times when I'm actually away for a month at a time or 6 weeks at a time. So the focus there is then on my business. But I find that the best way to approach that is to never try to be somewhere I'm not. So wherever I am, I give 100% of myself. So if I'm at home cooking dinner, I'm really appreciating my family and my role and my children, and not resenting the fact that, oh, I should be up in my studio working on that commission. And if I'm away, you know, on an island somewhere in the Pacific, I'm appreciating and enjoying my work there and not feeling guilty that I'm not at home. So what I do to alleviate that is, okay, in the evenings when I finish my work, I'm on my laptop helping my daughter with her assignments or her homework. So I think artists are always in that position of balancing, you know, their passion and their art life with daily responsibilities. But I think it's very important to find a system that kind of works for you, where you don't feel guilty, whatever you're doing. So whatever you're doing in this moment, give 100% of yourself to it and enjoy it and appreciate it. Don't feel guilty about what you're not doing right now, and vice versa. So yeah, I just kind of never wish I was somewhere I wasn't.
Well, it sounds like a wonderful life that you have built for yourself as an artist, and that you have some amazing experiences and opportunities. I appreciate you taking the time today to share some of those experiences and insights with the Red Dot blog audience and with the internet at large. The book is the Survival Guide for Artists, and it is available on Amazon. And it's available internationally on Amazon, or you can buy it directly from Red Dot blog by going to x.co/survival. Again, that's x.co/survival. It's the Survival Guide for Artists, How to Thrive in the Creative Arts by Elena Parashko. Thanks so much for taking the time this afternoon, Elena. I enjoyed spending a few minutes with you.
Thanks, Jason. It was fun.
And look for additional articles. We have some guest blog posts coming by Elena in the not too distant future on Red Dot blog. And like I say, I'd encourage you to pick up the book and gain some insight into your creative life as an artist. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you in the near future.